Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mission TV show. We're here with Gary and Wendy Roberts, and you guys are spending some time over in Africa, I hear.
Yes, we've been there 5 years now.
Okay. And what part of Africa?
Right now we're right in the middle of Africa, in the country of Chad, right on the edge of the Sahara Desert.
And that's a landlocked country.
Landlocked country, used to be the 5th largest country in Africa. And now since the split in South Sudan, I believe it's now the 3rd largest.
Wow. So compare it to like the state of Texas or any state in America. How big is it?
Well, it's roughly 500 miles wide and 1,000 miles long.
1,000 miles long?
Yes.
So it's like the western quarter of the United States?
Almost. You know, the countries in Africa are quite large in comparison to the states here in America.
So how do you get around in a country that size?
It's quite challenging. You can go by foot, by motorcycle, by camel, some areas by car, and we use an airplane because it's much faster and safer and actually more economical than driving a 4-wheel drive vehicle.
More economical?
More economical.
An airplane?
Yes.
How does that work?
By using small airplanes that are efficient and can burn the local fuel, we can actually fly and operate that cheaper per mile than a vehicle.
Really?
Yes.
Because you don't have as much repairs because the roads are so bad?
We don't have the repairs from the bad roads. In the dry season, the sand. In the wet season, the mud and the water, in the southern part of the country at least. And just the general wear and tear from driving on unimproved roads.
And you can get there a little quicker.
We can get there a little quicker, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
Basically, in general, you figure a day of land travel is equal to an hour by plane.
Wow.
In our small planes, in general.
So you can maximize your time there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you have some pictures for us?
Yes, you know, we live in a desert country, but the pictures I'm going to show you here starting out are actually of flooding, which the first time in known history, recorded history that they have there in Chad, they've had extreme flooding right close to where we live in the southern part of Chad. It came to within about a mile of our house and our air base, and extended, this particular area of flooding extended about 30 miles away from us.
Wow.
And so basically we have about 50 villages in that area that were suddenly underwater. You know, it's common in the rainy season to get some water, the rivers swell a little bit and so on, but obviously it doesn't normally cover the villages because otherwise there wouldn't be villages there. They build with mud brick mostly, and so as that mud brick gets soft and moist, it starts to collapse. As you can see here, this small village was surrounded, inundated by water, anywhere from ankle deep to chest deep.
Wow.
And so the people had basically any food that they had stored was suddenly bad. They had no place to cook it. They had no place to prepare it. And yet they were stranded out there with really no place to go.
Wow.
You can see a smaller village here, or a group of huts together. You can see in the forward center area there, 1 or 2 have already collapsed. And
yes,
that's the roof.
That's the roof.
Yes.
So the mud just gets soft and the whole thing
just collapses. Sometimes they go sideways, sometimes they cave in. You can see the other one here in the back. You can see the water line is right up here where it's dark, and so that one is probably going to collapse as well, as will these others out here.
Wow.
So essentially these people went from what little they had, which is very little, to virtually nothing. The large aid organizations in the country did nothing because it takes them several months usually to respond to a disaster like this. They write to their fundraisers, and 6 months or 8 months later, they'll start to respond to this crisis when it's well past.
Wow.
So I tried to get them involved, but without success. And so we took what little we could pull together, and we made some small care packages. You'll see the red bags there are the initial stage. We took rice and millet, their local food there. and bundled that up in 3 plastic bags, along with some charcoal and a lighter so that they could light their charcoal, and also some bleach.
Yeah.
Wendy
So they
can
could
tell you
have
about the
drinking water.
bleach.
Yeah, because all of the water, well, unfortunately their toilets are just the open ground, and so now all of that stuff is floating around and in their wells. So we also included a note of how to treat their water so that they could hopefully strain it out a little bit and then treat it with bleach so that they don't all get sick.
Wow.
Because after something like this, you'll see typhoid and cholera and who knows what other diseases
Right.
from that.
From contaminated water.
It could be a tremendous problem for in the short term as well as the long term, because they're just open pit hand-dug wells.
Wow.
And so that water will start to settle back into their wells, and it'll take quite a while before they're actually clean enough.
Wow.
Never clean enough by American standards to drink, but by their standards even.
Right.
So we put together these small care packages, and then there's always the question of how do you access somebody who's 20 miles out in a flood zone when you don't have a boat, because it's a desert country, this never happens. So how do you actually get to them? And of course, having grown up around airplanes and having an airplane is our mode of transportation, that was the answer for us. So you can see the bags here in the front then were double wrapped in a heavier plastic for 2 reasons. Number one, so that they don't get wet, so the food doesn't get wet when it lands, because we were dropping into water, but also to keep it together. When you do airdrops, you have to figure out what altitude and what speed to use so that you don't drop the package too low and have it go too fast and burst open from skipping along and hitting something on the ground or a stick in the water or something, versus dropping it from too high and having it explode on impact. So thankfully I'd done that growing up as a kid with my dad, who's also a mission pilot.
Really?
And I've done it a few times over the years.
So he used to fly you around and let you drop stuff out of the airplane?
I used to be the bombardier and do
delivering
that.
supplies?
Delivering supplies. We built churches from the air in Indonesia. And
Dropping
so
2x4s out of the airplane?
we were dropping mostly cement and nails and those kinds of things.
Wow.
But it was a great training
Missionaries have
experience.
all the fun.
And Wendy was my expert bombardier for these runs.
Oh, really?
She used to help me in South America.
Did you get the little sights all lined up and everything?
Well, it was better than that even.
Oh, really?
We actually just took the door off, and then we could throw it out the door at the right time, of course.
Yeah.
And so we could load up about 30 of these packages at a time. You can see they're
Did
surrounded.
she have her seatbelt on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
At least 2 of them,
Yeah.
with an extra harness. And so you can see the packages there behind her, and she has one in her lap, and we're just getting ready for one of the drops there. It was extremely well received because the people were out there. You could see what few belongings they had. They had on sticks or on anything that they could find to keep it up out of the water. And some of the stuff was just floating within their house. We would fly by, and you could see in their doorway, which has no door, you could see their pots or something just floating in there. So
they don't have shelves normally?
Normally don't have shelves. Everything is on the
floor.
ground.
So they're,
Yeah.
wow.
So they lost everything they had except their pots and pans, which is probably 1 or 2 per household. They were extremely excited to receive it. You know, it's kind of where you don't see an airplane very often, and suddenly there's an airplane flying down close to your house.
And dropping.
We were concerned if they would be nervous, and out of about 120 packages or so that we dropped, there were only 2 places where the people were hesitant at first of what was going on, but immediately they warmed up, and all the other places they ran out into the water. In fact, it was a problem for our dropping because they would start to come out to our drop zone after the first drop, so we had to keep moving our drop zone further and further away because people were out there. But they received it. Some of them still had some charge on a cell phone or something, I guess, because we started to get calls that thank you very much, for the supplies you dropped, and
Fantastic.
they were asking for tarps because, of course, many of their homes were gone and it was still raining. So we were buying up as many tarps as we possibly could in the capital. But even there, it was a challenge to suddenly find tarps in a desert country again. So it wasn't without challenges, but the people were extremely grateful. And I'm sure we just touched the tip of the iceberg. But we stayed until the flooding started to recede to make sure that things were under control and people could have access again to some kind of food source and some kind of medical attention as well.
Wow, that's really cool. So it looks like you're on the ground here?
No, we're actually flying.
It's very green.
We're about 300 feet above the ground right there. Yeah, it's amazing with all the rain how quickly the desert turns green. It's virtually overnight. It's like this potential that's just sitting there waiting to erupt. And literally overnight, blades of grass start shooting up and it starts to get green after about 9 months of being dry.
Amazing.
It's very interesting to see.
That's cool. So that really opens the door for...
Tremendously, because now as we return and take Bible workers or go in to start a church project or even just do some Bible studies, people are going to receive us with open arms. They've already said, please come and visit us, and they'll recognize us. I mean, there aren't many planes in the country of Chad, so as soon as they know that, hey, that's the pilot.
So now it's just a matter of ferrying all the Bible workers out to these different villages.
Absolutely. I mean, if we had 2,000 Bible workers tomorrow, we could use them.
How many do you have?
Right now, we have a very scant few that are just people that have done studies with us in the local area. And when we return in January, actually, we're starting a formal Bible worker training course, along with some of the other missionaries that are there who help us to put on this training.
Excellent.
Because it's a tremendous need, both for the spiritual aspect, but also for the health aspect, just the basic, simple health things of getting your clean water and those kinds of things that we take for granted here in these countries.
Right.
Along with that, we do have a church construction project going on in Chad right now that we're managing. We're able to receive some of these one-day churches, and we've put up 10 of those churches so far. You can see here a brand new congregation. It's kind of backwards in Africa. You go and build a church and then people fill it.
Really? So if you could build more churches, you could fill...
You could fill them. It takes a little bit of direction because you need people there who can lead them in the Bible, because there's nobody on the ground when you go someplace usually, because there hasn't been somebody before. So it's kind of happening all at the same time. You need a Bible worker and you need a church all at the same time.
So these people really don't have a Christian worldview. So they're starting from scratch.
Some of them will have a very general Christian worldview, mixed with their animistic beliefs still. And some of them are still living straight in their animistic beliefs. So that's why doing just as Jesus did, going and helping them first, is very important. And
Gain
so
their trust.
having the airplane there, we can go to their villages, we can offer medical care, we can transport doctors and nurses into them and do mobile clinics. We can transport them back to the hospital to get surgeries or things that they need. And so that really opens up the villages to, hey, these people are here to help us.
Nice.
And when you tell them, if you take this medicine or if you do this, you won't get this disease again, or here's some ways to prevent it, and they don't get sick again from that same disease, then they start to believe you and they have trust in you.
Nice.
So you can share with them that, Jesus did come to save you, and then they can receive that with open arms as well.
Nice.
And Africans are so big on visiting.
Really?
If you just visit them, they love that so much.
Fantastic.
So just getting out and being with the people, they love that.
Is there an opportunity for somebody here in the States that want to just go out or they can't preach, or they don't want to preach, they want to do, literature evangelism, they just go visit these villages?
Absolutely.
It's almost more important than the preacher or the teacher or the doctor.
Just to smile and shake hands.
Just to go and be with the people.
Even if they don't speak the language.
Even if they don't speak the language, love is a universal language.
Right.
People understand that if you go and spend time with them, you care about them.
Wow.
And
so just get a translator and just go hang out.
Even without a translator, you could do it.
Really?
Just
It's
by
a little
going
more
in,
uncomfortable.
just by going and hanging out, you're the honored guest when you come.
Really?
Even though they have nothing, they'll scramble for the little wooden bench that they have to come and set it down because you're the guest of honor, so you get the only chair that they have.
So there's wide open doors.
Absolutely.
Anybody
wide
can
open.
do it.
Really? So how come more people aren't doing it? I mean, No, let's not go there.
People are often afraid of what they don't know.
Yeah.
They think Africa is this place that's highly dangerous, and they're going to die if they go there. And while that is a risk,
Right.
but going to bed at night is a risk as well.
Right. I've heard some people died here in America the other day.
Yeah, it happens everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Died of boredom.
you know,
We feel safer there than here.
Really?
so we have the church projects to help bring the people the spiritual food that they need. But also one of the challenges that we mentioned is the water. And so we're trying different things to get them clean water so that the babies don't get as sick, so that they don't have the same diseases from the waterborne illnesses. So here you can see we're attempting to drill a well. The good water table here is between 150 and 200 feet.
Wow. That's down there. But isn't that looks like a forced water pressure kind of.
Yes.
figure.
So here we're doing simple mud drilling.
Okay.
You have the mud pump over here that's sucking the water out of the hole. That's one of the drawbacks is you have to have water to drill. So when you're going out to a remote area, it's a challenge to get the water there so that you can drill the hole. But then the mud pump pumps it up into the top of the pipe there. And the drill bit that we're using is actually just about a 6-inch piece of pipe that's cut on the ends into more or less a star shape or triangles. And then those are bent in various directions. And it creates enough of a cutting disc. And the energy that we're using is 4 guys who trade out. So there's about 8 guys on the team. And they trade out and just keep turning that with the mud pump going, and that keeps going down. There's 2 hard layers that we have to go through generally, and so that takes a while. But then we can get to the clean water and put our casing in, and then put a simple hand pump so that people can access that water.
Nice.
So our goal right now is to put a clean water well next to each of the churches so that people can get the clean water
So that
along
helps
with the
the
gospel
center
message.
of influence.
Absolutely. And people will come around then in the evenings to get their water in the mornings, and we can have a small service in the evenings. People, even if they don't come inside, they'll be participating.
Wow. That's great. That's fantastic. And this is the rainy season.
This is just coming into the rainy season, yes.
Okay.
So typically it'd be everything would be brown except for the palm trees there. Yes. And as you go further north, of course, then it's only sand and desert.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about using the plane for medical work and transportation of personnel and supplies, which we do. But one of the least favorite things that we do with the airplane is transport bodies. Sometimes somebody will die at the hospital, and we have to transport them back to their village. It's very important to these people to be buried in their home village. And so if we've transported them to the hospital, or if they've died there and they need to get home and can't access it by land, then we will offer that service, because during their grieving period, of course, it's already a challenging time for them, especially with their beliefs. Sometimes they have very strange beliefs of what happens to the dead. And so by helping them out during that time, it's a door opener as well, where we can come back to them, not only during the grieving process, but after the grieving process.
Right.
We can come and tell them, you know, this is what the Bible teaches about death, and this is the hope that we can have, and give them some Bible studies.
Awesome.
So this is a rare occasion where we actually had a coffin for the body. I can't transport the body in a coffin, only wrapped up in plastic. And then this person was more influential in the village, and somehow they scrambled together and found some wood, which is rare to find there, and even some white sheets to line it with.
Wow.
So that's one of our job descriptions, I guess,
Wow.
in the mission field. Of course, not everywhere has easy access. That's why we're having to do airdrops for some of the villages during the flooding. Not all villages have a runway out there. So, and even the runway that they do have is often not kept up to American standards of a runway. So it's a struggle to have them keep the grass short. And here you can see the grass is almost as tall as the wings on the airplane. So on that particular plane, that's almost 7 feet. So the grass is about 6 feet tall.
Wow.
And thankfully the center line of the runway was cut shorter than that. But it can still be a challenge where they only clear half the runway, or maybe just a small strip
Or
and
they
expect
decide to burn it the day you're coming or whatever.
They light a fire on it. They just don't understand a lot of these things. So it comes with its challenges, but
So
it
how
also
deep-
makes it interesting.
Yeah. How deep can it get before you start to lose, till it starts to get dangerous?
For grass in general, you just need it short enough so the propeller does not touch it. This airplane, you can't see it right now, but it's modified with big tires to raise it up from that a little bit more.
Okay.
So it can be up to about 1.5 feet tall before it starts to create a problem. And sometimes there's spindly grass on the edges that can prove to be a bit of a challenge. But
Wow.
usually they'll call for a medical patient and then realize that their grass is too tall, so then they start cutting it.
What do they use to cut it with? Get out there with a big old lawnmower, riding lawnmower?
John Deere in Africa is called a little knife that's sharpened on a stone. That's the John Deere of Africa. So they're out there swinging it by hand to cut the grass.
And how long does the strip needs to be 1,000 feet?
1,000 feet is nice. Sometimes they're a bit shorter than that. But thankfully in Chad, it's pretty flat in most areas. So you have a good approach and a good takeoff clearing.
Okay. That's cool. So then, so you've got the airplane ministry, you've got the well drilling, you've got the health,
Church
and the
planting.
media and the church planting.
Sure.
You haven't said much about the media, but you're doing that as well.
Sure. We're actually working on establishing a radio station there so that we can share not only the gospel, but the things about health and so on to the local people. Again, not everybody has a radio, but at least in every village there's a few radios. So when people get to know about the health talks or the Bible stories or kids stories even that we can put on, we're hoping to develop that into the local language so that even the women and children can understand that. Because typically only the more educated people will speak French and Arabic, which are the national languages.
Okay.
But by bringing it to the local language, then they can benefit fully from that and learn more, because it's mostly an audible culture. They learn by listening. They don't read. They don't have anything published except for the Bible, and they don't know how to read that.
There's a pre-television.
Pre-television.
Might be a good place to raise your family.
The technology gap there is quite interesting. In general, the highest form of local technology that they have is the ox cart with steel wheels. And then you'll see somebody on a cell phone as they're walking by leading their oxen. So the gap is tremendous, but they don't have the televisions and that yet because there's no electricity.
Wow.
So even their cell phones, they have to go into town, one of the bigger villages, to somebody who has a small generator, and they pay a small fee to charge it up, and then they'll have the charge for the week.
So there's huge open doors for people to come and work in Africa. And I've been to Africa a couple times. I just love it there. There's some sense of feeling of just, it's a great place to live. Now, you mentioned that you feel safer in Africa than you do here in the United States. Why is that?
I don't
there's
know.
no
I mean, I
freeways?
suppose if I was in a city, I might not feel that way. But I love living in the village. Nobody's ever bothered us. You have so many friends that would stick up for you if they needed to.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just,
So there's
it's
wide
just a
open
nice place to live.
doors for what would be the first step? If somebody started to be interested in what you're talking about and maybe checking it out about possibly for them coming and doing the visitation or helping in the health or the media or whatever, even the well drilling,
Sure.
even telling the story back to the people here in America, because most Americans have no clue what's happening there. What would be the process that they would go through in getting more information or
Sure.
learning about this?
If they want to learn more about what we're doing, they can get onto the Gospel Ministries website.
Okay, which is?
www.gospelministry.org. They can log on there. There's a volunteer application form. They can fill out if they want to come long-term, short-term, We'll take virtually anybody and everybody
Uh-huh.
who has a passion to share the gospel in any way they feel inspired to do.
Uh-huh.
Also, they can contact us directly
Uh-huh.
at our email address, which is our last name Roberts, Roberts, at gospelministry.org.
Okay. But how would somebody know if they were even the ones to go, if God was calling them? I mean, what are the clues that they could see for themselves whether they were the ones that were called?
You know, in general, I'd say if they feel like they might be, or they feel some kind of small voice there that's saying they should look into it,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably for them. Because God is probably just waiting to open a bigger door for them, but He wants to test their faith and see that they're willing to listen to that gospel commission that He sent His Son here to give us years ago.
Uh-huh.
And He left it for us. He said, "Go ye therefore into all the world." And so if they're willing to follow that small voice and start taking a step forward, you can't change the direction of something that's not in motion. But once you're in motion, you can change that direction.
So you start moving, start like getting your passport, getting your visa, getting information, figuring out how much it's going to cost to buy the ticket, figuring out how much it's
Save how much it's going to cost till the end stage, because that might scare you away.
Why is that? I mean, you got to know those. That's the most important thing, isn't it?
Well, to some people it can be the most important, but to God it's the smallest thing.
Really? So have you known anybody that's not been able to go if they've wanted to because of money?
Not that have told me about it. Everybody who's contacted us and said, "Hey, we want to come," they've come.
Wow.
One way or the other. And even us personally, we went straight out of college to the mission field. And sometimes we tighten the belt, but God has been faithful for the last...
And how long has that been? 2 or 3 years?
11 years.
11 years that
11
God
years.
has supported you.
Absolutely.
Most people will ask us, what is the biggest need? Do you need people or do you need money? And they're wanting us to say money because they're happy to give their money. But to actually go themselves is a little bit tougher, but we always say people. God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills, but He can't make you go. You have to decide.
He doesn't own our hearts.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for being here again on the Mission TV show, and thank you also for joining with us. And I want to challenge you. Do you hear that still small voice? Because it may be reconfirming God's call on your life. Don't be afraid of it because it can open the greatest blessings. God bless you.